So yeah, I'm Pauline Baines, also known as Paula Baines. Paula short for Pauline, and I'm a freelance motion and graphic designer. Um, I initially started out as a graphic designer in house. I graduated in 2016, and I worked in house doing graphic design. Started in print, doing brochures, logos, did window manifestations, gallery exhibition manifestations, and worked my way up kind of different graphic design roles until lockdown happened, and then I started working from home, which most people did. I was still full-time graphic designer at this point, again predominantly print, but I started to learn to animate in that there was no commuting or going back and forth into the city, so I would just use the free time in the morning to learn animation, and I would just basically animate my own illustrations and typography. And I love self-help books and self-development books and positive quotes and things. So that's kind of why I begin animating and posting them to Giphy. And that kind of changed the trajectory of my career. I started doing more motion work and combining it with my graphic design. And then again, lockdown was 2 years, so I had two new jobs during lockdown. I worked as a graphic designer with motion, again doing both print and then also incorporating motion for social posts. And then from there I went to a senior motion graphic design role, doing some Google and YouTube socials for an agency, again another advertising agency in London. But during that time in lockdown where I was posting stuff online like Instagram and LinkedIn and things, I was getting little commissions and freelance jobs through there, animating Giphies and stickers and animation type for other brands and just people that found me on the internet, which, changed the trajectory of my career massively to now where I've been freelancing for the last 2 years, combining design, motion, print, web, a bit of everything really. And it's kind of worked out well. So interesting, good question. I'm actually dyslexic, and I never felt like a good writer. I was always very conscious of it. I found out I was dyslexic during lockdown, not in lockdown, university. So in university, people was talking about they was dyslexic. I didn't really even know what it was, and then I got a test for it and found out I was, which made sense because I used to be a very slow reader, and when I read things, I have to read them over and over to kind of understand what is being said to me, or if someone gives me a brief, I can read it a few times and I kind of have to double check with the client, is this what you want from me? Just to make sure, because I never, I don't know, that's just part of a dyslexic brain. You don't necessarily retain what's being asked. So the written side of stuff, I feel like I've only kind of gained confidence with it over the past year. The more I read and just experience life, the more I'm kind of thinking about things. So I've just started on my Apple Notes page, writing down thoughts. I generally think a lot more than I talk. So these days I feel like I'm better at writing than I am at discussing things. So yeah, I've just been writing down thoughts and reflections I've had, and even conversations I've had with peers and colleagues and other friends. I'll just kind of make a mental note of what that conversation was, and then I'll turn them into kind of written blog posts, which I share online. I use ChatGPT as well just to help me structure them a little bit better. But yeah, no, I've got more written work now than I do creative work, I'd say. And now as well, writing those thoughts down, I do find it really helps with creative ideas. I used to kind of sit and look on Pinterest and Motionographer and things for inspiration and try and get ideas to make something over the weekend. Whereas now that I'm writing my thoughts and processing them, even journaling, in the morning, I'll write what I'm grateful for and journal my thoughts at the end of the day. That's kind of really leading my own work now, because within those written posts that I'm doing, there will be a quote or something in there which then I'll animate myself, rather than looking for a quote online. I'll just animate my own quotes. So there was a post I did on LinkedIn that did really well, and it was the power of saying no, learning to say no, and that did really well. And that came from me just that was something happened in that week where I had to turn down a job, and I felt really anxious about it because as you're creative, you just want to do all the work you can and work with everybody in every culture, every brand, every client. It's all fun to you. I love it. I literally love what I do as a job. So I would do every job for every person. But sometimes you do have to say no. Not everything aligns with you and what work you're doing at that time. And equally, sometimes you just don't have capacity. So I had to say no. And that kind of end of that week, I wrote up that blog, just like reflecting on how that's a lesson that I needed to learn and get better at, really, because sometimes you say yes to everything and then you realize you've got no time to work on your own projects as well. You need that balance of like making your own work as well as doing client work. I think if you do too much client work, you fall behind on like your own passions, and your own creativity kind of takes a hit. So yeah, the written work is, I would recommend everyone to do it. I've been telling everyone, like, just start writing down your thoughts, even just like a few thoughts at the end of the day. That'll like spark so many ideas and like help you kind of like process your emotions as well. When I started out, I was always worrying like, oh, I don't have an illustrative style. My background is illustration animation. And I used to panic like, oh, I need to use only these fonts, I need to only use these colors, and I need to only do this kind of work. And I think now looking back, like hindsight, like I had all these different graphic design jobs, which at the time I didn't really enjoy because I just never felt like I was working with the big brands. And like now I get to make such a fulfilling career by doing design, motion, some 3D. Like it's all come together really well. But at the beginning, I was so worried that I didn't have a niche and I wasn't going to make it. And all these other people have got such a defined style, and that's how you become successful, by, being so easily identifiable, which I think slowed my progress down because then I was only like hyper focusing on like what I should be doing rather than just embracing it and learning it. And if you're an artist in general, like the more work you create, the more reps you put in, the more of a body you build, like a body of work. And that's how you have more of an identifiable style anyway, just naturally by having produce more work. So yeah, I definitely would say you don't need to pick a niche. Just focus on what you want to learn at that time and just make as much as you can. Just enjoy making it, make as much as you can, and you'll naturally figure out what colors you like using, or what fonts you want to use, or how you want to design, where you take your inspiration from. At the end of the day, like, you're a creative, you're a motion designer, a designer. You want to do this for the rest of your life. You've got your whole life to like build a body of work. Like, I feel like if I could have all the success tomorrow, would I want it? Or it's not going to make me feel fulfilled. Whereas, like, you get through each week, and like now we're getting towards the end of the year, you can look back at the work you made, and like you can see your progress, which is what's satisfying, and like that's what's fulfilling. Like, just appreciate your journey and like trust you're going to be doing this for many, many years to come. Like, you are your niche, you are going to make a body of work, and your work probably is more identifiable when someone else is looking at it than when you're looking at it. Creativity thrives in action and feedback. So, like, this comes from when you're starting out. I used to be scared to like get feedback from people, or like I remember even being in-house in agencies. And my boss and stuff would be sat on the computer behind me, and I would just always like be anxious when they'd want to look over and see what I was working on. But you learn from getting the feedback. Like, show your work as much as possible, put it out into the world, even online and things. Like, don't take it all to heart. Like, as much feedback as you can get is like as much learning as you can do. It's actually a good thing. And equally, like, don't just sit and think about what you want to make. Like we just said earlier about how writing is really inspiring work. Just starting something, like physically doing something, even if you just doodle a little drawing or a little storyboard that looks like nothing, but to you've just started putting something in motion, that fuels more ideas and more creativity, and it's just easier to like make what you want to make. I think it's sometimes you can kind of like sit on Instagram or LinkedIn or Pinterest and just scroll through and look at what other people are making and make mood boards, and then not really actually make anything for yourself. Like, you're consuming more than you're creating. And I think just giving yourself a limited time to like take inspiration, but like put more time into just action and doing, creating, whatever it's writing, taking photos, drawing a storyboard, animating a tutorial or something. Like, the action gets more done than just kind of thinking about what you want to do. And then, yeah, ask your friends, family, people online for feedback, and just take as much in as you can. Like, learn from all of your experiences and the opinions of others and feedback that you can receive. Even like as a freelancer as well, like towards an end of a booking or an end of a contract, or end of a commission, I equally still follow up on like, is there anything I could have done better? Like, was my communication okay? Always get feedback. You want to be like your best self. You want to be your best artist. You want to be your best creator. You want to be your best business person. Like, the more you're trying to improve yourself, the more useful you can be to others. But still, yeah, creatively, not every idea you're going to get is a success. Like sometimes the clients come like, this is not what we wanted. We need to steer it in this direction. And it's fine. Like you can't take it personally. Like as much as you're an artist and it's like work that's coming through you, you can't take it personally sometimes. Like you just work out, okay, the client needs this, I'm gonna have to move the idea in this direction. Nothing's a waste. Like you can keep that separate, and that can fuel an idea for something you make for yourself, or even it could come up later in a different brief where that idea might be born into a new project. You know what I mean? Keep learning, do tutorials, get courses, like learn new skills, learn new techniques. The more techniques and more skills, the more softwares you know, the more avenues you've got to explore when you've got a tricky brief. Like if you know how to do 2D and you know how to do a bit of 3D, you've got more avenues to like tackle one brief than if you only do one thing. If you only know how to use Illustrator, you might need to pick some Photoshop skills up to like just do some image manipulation that you couldn't do in Illustrator. No matter how busy you get with client work, always make sure you invest in time to like learn and upgrade your own skills on the side. That's going to keep you fresh, keep you, ahead of other people. You're going to make your best work if you've got more avenues to tackle a brief, basically. Start before you're ready. Don't try and perfect your work. Like just start posting, document the journey. Like I'm trying to just document more of my journey now, even Instagram, where I used to only post the finished things, and now it's like actually that puts so much pressure on you to make a finished thing every day or every other day, especially when you're trying to juggle work. Like document what you're learning and how you're learning it, and it becomes useful for other people too. And even then it's like a visual diary and a journey for yourself to look back on over the years. Maintain balance, and I'm going to put this in two parts. Like balance of, you can spend 10 hours on the computer, but make sure you get, go outside for a walk, leave the house. I make sure that in the morning I go work out, because I know after that I'm going to be on the computer for hours, and I can happily sit on the computer for hours and it doesn't bother me. I don't mind what's going on outside. I can get lost on the computer, but you need to maintain an active mind, keep an active body, and vice versa. And equally with that, if I'm doing so much client work and I'm not doing work for myself, like I feel unfulfilled. I feel like I feel like my client stuff is going ahead, but I'm not progressing myself. As much as I love client work and I'm forever grateful, I feel good when I'm like developing my skills and I know I'm bringing myself forward, and like future me will be grateful for the work that current me is doing. So like the balance is, for every client project, make sure you do some work for yourself. Like, it's not hard work. Like making work for yourself is fun. Even if it's writing your thoughts down, or like building a mood board for an idea you want to make next week or something. Like just keep the balance of like client work, your work, as well as work and physical health. Like just keep some level of balance for your health and well-being, let's say. Thank you for having me on Pro-Moxion. I really appreciate the conversation we've just had. It's been great, and I'm looking forward to seeing what else you get making and who else you get on the podcast.